Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining today's session. I hope you can hear me now pretty well, and you can see me okay. My name is Radomir Borton, and I am the general manager of the cluster of the countries in Dell Technologies called Northeast Europe. And I will be today your host at this event. And the event that is called Connected CIO, that is part of the longer series. And the purpose of this series and the session today is to connect thought leaders and decision makers to discuss vital and important topics. All right. So this is the platform that we are encouraging you, customers and partners, to talk with us about some important topics and to share ideas and experiences between each other. And the format of this event is that we invite some speakers that put objective light on the subject that we provide every time. And in the second part, we encourage, when it is possible in a physical space, to run some discussions. So I'm always encouraging everyone to discuss. Today, as we are still in a half digital world, I'm asking everyone to be active in a chat box and ask the questions by putting typing them into the chat. So again, thank you very much for joining, and just to immediately jump to the subject of today's session, which is I think very important and very crucial actually for many of the customers I have a chance to talk to, and it's called cyber resilience. And why is this really important is because when I look from our customers' perspective, I can definitely tell you that, becoming more digital savvy and embracing digital transformation is really becoming a key industrial trend. I can see this myself. Potentially you are observing this very well as well, that customers and organizations in general are becoming very much digital focused. Think of it from the perspective of a digital workplace, right? As today, where in current circumstances, we work and learn from almost everywhere, and distributed workforce of our organizations connects from everywhere to company systems and applications remotely. That is just one simple thing, but if you look broader, organizations become more digital to build stronger brands. And in digital space, of course, and to drive digitally more better customers experience and customer loyalty. And that's becoming more and more obvious that the customers and organizations are using more and more analytics and other emerging technologies to build deeper and broader knowledge about their customers. And the crucial part here is that data that we collect and process, as we call it today, we live in a data decade, where the insights are coming from the data are so much critical to sustain and expand our business footprint. So data has really become a precious asset. And because it is so much valuable, it has become as well so much vulnerable, right? And the bad boys of the internet knows it very well, very well. And this is why I think, and I see this very much, this topic being very active on the market, that the cyber resilience has become really a crucial area and a crucial topic of all customers' agendas, okay? And because cyber threats don't cost anymore just a small, mere thousands of dollars of losses anymore, it is really become like a huge impactful aspect on the businesses. According to some analysis, we see the total global impact of the cyber crime in current year 2021 will reach the size of $6 trillion, looking from the global perspective. And there is very a common misconception as well that there are only certain size of the organizations or enterprises that are, or even types of industries that are attacked by the hackers or more vulnerable. But actually, the reality is that nobody is immune. And the bad actors, the bad boys, as I call it, target businesses of all sizes and all across all of the industries. We can see this actually everywhere in our region, but actually globally exactly the same. And that's why cyber resilience is that important. And if you look at this, this is more like a strategy that includes, of course, cybersecurity standards, people, guidelines, and the business processes, and of course, technology solutions at the end as well. But resilience, it's more about ability to answer, to withstand any attack and recover from those attacks, accidents, or even natural occurring threats or incidents. So the thing is that even if you build more and more sophisticated security solutions, and you surround your perimeter of your organization with even more sophisticated modes or digital walls, you are still vulnerable for all of the insider kind of threats, or for instance, in particular, on the ransomware that is so much impacting our customers that are very much affected by this type of the threats. So it's very much important today, how do we react to those threats, and how do we respond, and how do we make sure that we continue our business operations by recovering from this kind of symptoms or this kind of attacks. And today this topic will be led by two speakers that I'm very, very proud of having with us today. And let me introduce immediately Are Reitman, who is CEO of Cybex Technologies, and Scott Roberts, who is Director of the Cyber Resilience Unit, the EMEA Dell Technologies. And in the next, not very long time, they both will try to help us understand what are the real cyber threats, and in our case, in our region, what are the examples of this kind of threats and impacts on the business of our customers, and as well to discuss, what should be our answers, what are the solutions, and what are the approaches that we should take to be prepared and to act in the case of such occurrences. So I'm very proud of having those two experts with us. Again, I'm encouraging everyone to have a active discussion by typing questions. I'll be your host. I'll be taking all those questions, trying to share them and maneuver between presentations and the discussion itself. And we'll leave some space at the end as well for the discussion and the closing. And before handing over to our first speaker, which will be Are, I really want to use this opportunity as well to encourage everyone to be part of our event, our flagship event that we run every year, which is Dell Technologies Forum. And actually very soon, less than 3 weeks from now, 16th of November, we will be running this event for our customers in Baltics and Slovakia. I'll be hosting this one, but we'll be running this for the whole Central Eastern Europe, exactly 16th of November. So I'm kindly encouraging everyone, please join us and be part of this event to learn and to discuss about digital transformation and the technologies that are fueling those trends. So from my side, that's it. Thank you very much. I'll stop sharing right now, and I will hand it over to next speaker, who is Are.
Hi, thank you, Radomir. Good evening from my side. Good morning from my side to everybody. It's happy to be here. So what I will do at the moment is that I will share my screen. Just give me hands up if you can see my screen.
Oh yes, that's nice. Yes, we can.
Indeed, yeah. So what I will do is that I will walk you through the things what we have seen the past couple of years, and especially in the latest months, and how it actually has affected our everyday lives. So my name is Are Reitman. I'm this Chief Operations Officer at CIO Technologies. What we do is that we build up cyber ranges to simulate real-world attacks in the environments. And why we do that is that we have seen in the world that these kind of attacks are happening on a daily basis. And what we want to do is that we want to train the defensive and also the offensive teams how to actually attack live environments in a way that you hide your tracks and you do your activities and then you leave, and how from the defending side you are able to understand how the attackers are thinking, and then you are able to do these modifications in the defensive side and actually be better in this area. So I hope that everybody has seen this movie, so Live Free or Die Hard. Every single Christmas time in Estonia, at least, they are showing the whole sequence all the time. All the men are happy, all the women are not so happy. But other than that, what actually happened in this movie was that in Washington, D.C., the hackers started to take over the things, the electricity, elevators, you know, playing with the traffic lights, and etc. So it was a cool movie. John McClane didn't touch computers. He just punched everybody on the face and shoot them down. But at the end, it just showed that how easily nowadays is to, you know, change our lives by taking these kind of IT means to control over the systems. And from our point of view, this is the actual situation in the cyber ecosystem at the moment. There are threats everywhere. So even if you put on the helmet and it doesn't actually help you to survive, you just need to understand. And that's the purpose of these kind of events, is to raise the security awareness of different people to actually act differently in the internet environment and also in the business environment by taking these kind of actions that will secure you better against, let's say, these attackers. And my motto has been that in the cybersecurity world, you don't have to be the best, you just need to be better than your neighbor is, because the attackers mostly will attack the weakest link. And if it's a criminal, let's say, boutique, then they will not spend too much effort onto you when there is no money coming back. And again, if we're taking about this, let's say, approach, that there are three types of people in the world. First type is the smartest ones who actually learn from other mistakes. And today in this seminar, we have all the people who are that smart that will learn from other mistakes. The second type is that you don't believe it, you want to try it out on your own. And the last ones are that don't change their life at all. So let's be smart ones and let's start learning from other mistakes. And today I will show you some of the mistakes what have been done. From this point, what we have seen is that from the business's point of perspective, as employees, what we usually do is that if the employee data is lost, for example, business data is lost, then somebody or most of the people don't feel responsible of that. Where we start thinking about security is the place when actually our own privacy is leaked, or we can see something with our own, let's say, data being published. And that's the easiest thing, is to Google around, search what you see from our side. And if the privacy is that is leaked, and this is the, let's say, the main trigger in our heads, how we start thinking. And if we already have our own cyber hygiene good enough, then we take this cyber hygiene also to our workplaces, and that helps us around. Taking into account that the cybersecurity measures are, let's say, implemented to all on the same level and on the same principles, then this, let's say, world and mindset of thinking actually is everywhere. And for example, here is the main, picture of Google Maps and Google Earth. So they have algorithm that if you have 2 eyes, nose, and 2 ears, then they will blur the face. It doesn't matter if it's a human or it's a cow or goat or whatever. Then that's the principle in cybersecurity that will be taken from the corporate view. And this is not bad, because then everybody has the same rules and understanding how to operate in this kind of field. Now, if we are thinking about what kind of devices we have at home and also in the business environment, then that's an old picture. But again, just think how many devices you own and control on your everyday life. So how many devices you have. If somebody is brave enough, then write in the chat that how many devices you operate on a daily basis, and taking into account the home devices, business devices, usual, PCs, laptops, tablets, mobile phones, And let's take it even further. You have your home routers and switches and all these kind of things as well. What I have seen is that nowadays the smart devices or the IoT systems what are out there, so the smart refrigerators that we have in the home, what they are doing is that they are actually learning how we as a people are actually using them. For example, that they know that I will go to sleep at 11 p.m. and wake up at 7 a.m. So it means that from 11 p.m. till 6 a.m. the refrigerator don't cool the system up enough, so they know that I'm not opening the door, the heat will not go in and the temperature will be the same. But from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. they will actually push the cooling on, because I know that from 7 a.m. I'm coming, my wife is coming, my children are coming, and opening the door in 1 hour at least 15 to 30 times. That means that the fridge is so smart that they know that they have to cool down the fridge in a dedicated level, that even 15 times opening the door doesn't help actually the fridge to go down. The other thing what happened to me is that my wife sent me to the cooking class. Wonder why? I went in, and what happened is that I started to boil potatoes. Simple task, but the oven itself sent a message to the steam sucker on top of that through the German servers that now the potato started to egg and the steam sucker has to start working in a higher temperatures. So this is where we are actually now living, is that everything what we can imagine will be somehow interacted and connected to the internet, and all these kind of things are moving. And now if you understand that these kind of things are present and they are connected to internet and you owe them one way or another, then that also puts us in the situation where we need to actually deal with these kind of things. The other point now is that if we understand how many devices and systems we have that we have to defend, then let's put another hat on and let's start thinking how easy or how hard it is nowadays to hack. And the easiest way how the young students or people are actually attacking us is that going to the YouTube and type in how to hack, and then there is a bunch of, let's say, answers how to actually already do these kind of things. And the first one is Wi-Fi password. So click on that. There is a nice video teaching how to attack, what kind of systems you need to download, what kind of parameters you have to insert. And the only thing what they need to do is just click next, 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 and these kind of things happen. When I was working for Estonian government, then what we saw a huge difference was that the main attackers of main websites, bank, let's say, facilities, government facilities, were people age 13 to 21. And the reasoning behind it was that they were living outside of the main cities. They don't have any places where to hang out. They saw that, oh, I have a computer in my house, and they started to do anything. Of course, they will be caught. It's an easy peasy cake, but it just shows the mindset of people, how they actually go rogue in a very young ages. And this is now one point is that even businesses are taken down by children. And now if these kind of things are available to everybody, and let's put on these different, let's say, hacking groups, let's say the ones who want to take money, and also government supported groups, then the life is dangerous for all of us. And what we have seen is that if we are browsing around in the dark web and looking this kind of, let's say, prices, or what is the mindset nowadays, is that we have a crime as a service. So you don't have to create the malware, deploy it, manage it, and then collect the outcomes of it. Nowadays, you will go to the dark web and then search somebody who is actually providing the service. For example, if I don't like some service in Estonia, then if I'm really, really pissed off and I'm not having these kind of capabilities to do anything harm them, then I can go to the dark web and buy these kind of services. Usually you cannot pay in dollars anymore. So cryptocurrencies are the ones that are taking into account. But again, hacking a website and stealing a data is approximately in the value of $350. So in the business world, this number is peanuts. In a personal life, it might be even some money, but at least to understand that this is the level of criminals taking this money in to actually attack somebody else. And then there is this kind of DDoS attacks. You can already have them from $5 per hour up to, let's say, $1,000 per week, that the DDoS attack is distributed denial of service attack. What they're actually doing is that they're sending a lot of packets towards your web services. And that means that it will be so overcome that the regular people cannot use your services. And this is what we have seen recently heavily in Estonia in ransomware cases, and I will go there in a second. And now coming and taking again the same perspective is that first of all, we are used to use our computers, our smartphones, our tablets at home and in the workplace and so forth. And now we are drinking in this kind of other concept as well. So the Internet of Things. And also what we see in our office is that our lighting you can put as a remote device. You can do booking of your meeting rooms over the internet. So these kind of things are now put into these kind of, let's say, connected to internet. And besides of that, if we are looking on our everyday life again, is that we have, smart homes, smart saunas here in Eastern European region and Northern European region. Everybody likes to go sauna. So for example, I have this kind of app that when I'm traveling to my summer house, I can already remotely put my sauna in. And then when I reach it, I know that my sauna is ready. My temperature in the room is ready for my children to go in. So everything I can do remotely. But all these kind of things, if you put them into the internet, they might be vulnerable in that sense that even if it's protected with password or not protected by password, only an IP number is given to you, then you're able to access these kind of things. And here is just one example. What I like to show is that we just randomly, found this nice house in Estonia and check where the person has put cameras also. On the right down corner, you can see a restroom also, and all the cameras actually were put into the restrooms, in the bedrooms. So you could do absolutely everything. You could do switching off lights, you can switch on music, and all these kind of things were just managed from internet without any passwords and these kind of things as well. The same system is used in this business buildings also, how to regulate temperature. And what we have seen is that we actually searched from Tallinn and from Riga, and we've found several houses where you are able to business, facilities where you're able to modify. We have also found one of the Baltic's biggest chain food supplier that is selling, grocery stores, and we found a way how to actually modify their fish selling refrigerators, so you could turn down the cooling from there in where they're selling the fish. So the fish are usually put on the ice, and if you're cutting this down, the ice will melt, the fish will start to smell. So these kind of things are nowadays where we are working at. And that's the future of these kind of things where we're moving. So all the things what we are seeing. So we have been working in one IoT working group where the doctors are now looking possibilities not to ask people over to the hospitals to actually modify your some kind of gastric stimulators or insulin pumps. So what is the word nowadays is that the people are so old that they don't know how big amount to inject to yourself. Then what the doctors are now doing is they're setting the devices in a dedicated level that every time you give the shot, then they automatically will put these kind of things. And that's a totally different new mindset that actually is coming to the world. And what we have seen is that if the things are able to send and receive send packages, then they most probably are able also to receive them. And if you play around with these kind of things, then already these kind of problems can be fatal to all of us. Few more examples, just bear with me. So the biggest lie in the world that everybody is doing in the internet world or ecosystem, what we have seen, and that actually what I'm also doing. If you ask from lawyers, then lawyers are telling that they don't do it. But the biggest lie what we all do is that we have read and accept the terms of conditions of any of the app or new device that we're buying in. Is that true? Most probably yes. So when you buy a smart TV at home, then the first thing what you have to do is that you have to accept the terms and conditions of this vendor. If you download an app, you always have to accept the terms and conditions. And now the question is that, example, for this kind of apps, so why this, for example, Facebook needs to have root access to your phone and all access to all these environments? Why do you have this kind of translation app to have all access to every single machine or system in your mobile device? So these are the things that we don't think that sometimes you don't even need to have a hacker to overcome your systems, but rather actually giving these kind of, let's say, rights to the third parties. And what I usually do is that when I have long flights, unfortunately during the COVID time, I haven't had those kind of things. I'm opening up my mobile device and actually then going through the permissions from app to app. So what I have seen is that if I actually put that disable, then from the new update or upgrade for this app, they actually enable all these kind of systems again. But now, if we have set this mindset, let's go to the main topic, and that's the ransomware cases, what we have seen nowadays to the businesses. So we know that this environment is very, very harmful. We know that the attackers will always attack the weakest link. And now what we have seen is that the easiest way to ask money from corporations is doing a ransomware attack. And the ransomware attack is something that what they're doing is that they somehow get in, they are tricking persons to click some of the links, download the payloads, or executing some payloads in your environment one way or another. And then the ransomware gets in, they will encrypt all your data and then will ask the ransom. What we have now seen is that they don't only stop with that. So we just had a case in Estonia where, first of all, the attackers were able to get in, they exfiltrated data, they encrypted the disks in the environment. And then what happened, it was that they started to blackmail, first of all, send us, coins to decrypt your files. Then the second one was that since we exfiltrated the data, please pay extra. And then the third one was that when the company still didn't respond, they started to do heavy DDoS attack against this environment. So what we have seen is that these attackers are getting smarter and smarter every single day, and they are finding different ways how to motivate the companies to pay. For example, if you don't have your backups in place and you don't understand that the backups are the ones that you are able to bring back your normal day business with hours, then the other problem is that, first of all, if they were able to exfiltrate the data, then what they will start doing is the blackmailing. If you have some dedicated contracts that you don't want to release to the public, they will start pursuing your clients, and not only your clients, but what we have seen in the latest, for example, from Finland, what happened with this medical center was that, first of all, they asked money from the medical center that we have hacked. We have received your medical data of the people, please pay. They didn't pay. Then they sent emails to the people of being patients in this psychology clinic and asking money from them. And if they also said that, okay, we don't have any money to pay, then they went to the partners and asking that, okay, if you don't pay, then we will release this data to all your partners and making sure that nobody will work to you again anymore. So they always find ways how to motivate businesses to pay. And we have here some of examples from Latvia, from Estonia, and also from Slovenia. So these kind of things actually happen, and these are quite popular. We see a huge trend in ransomware attacks towards the businesses. And what we are saying, and we are also helping our customers out by not paying, by just implementing the security measures that will take the impact of this kind of attack minimum. And first of all, backups, logging, what happens where, and these are the things. And why I'm speaking here is that we and Dell have a cooperation in that sense that we use Dell software in building up our CyberRange environments, and also using some of their tools to show how actually these tool sets are helping customers and businesses to overcome these kind of attacks. And we are doing actual use cases build up on these kind of solutions, and they actually work if they are configured and implemented properly. So this is what we can say, and not promoting just one, let's say, vendor, is saying that these kind of threats are out there. The ways how different attackers are now working goes beyond our normal behavior, and understanding that they are always looking ways how to motivate. And this kind of triple extortion, what they are doing, exfiltrating data, encrypting the data, and then also doing DDoS attacks and blackmailing your end customers and partners. So this is the world now we are living in. And my recommendation to you always is that what I have seen is that businesses and governments think totally different. Governments usually or mostly or never even pay to the ransomware. What we have seen is that businesses are paying. And usually when you once pay, then they will come back you even harder and even stronger. So the best way is to implement in security measures and pay a little bit every year and have dedicated security baseline, then actually pay once for the criminals, and they then spend way much money for your security services, and then you will be still, let's say, the target of these kind of people. So that was a short overview from my side, what is going on. The aim of this was actually to show that this ecosystem is existing and it is full of bad actors, and trying to overcome this kind of ways is to actually implement dedicated security measures in your organization.
So Ara, if I may, because I really like what you said, and especially about the how the hackers motivate the companies. Okay, this is something that many customers are not aware, that how many ways of impacting us that the attackers are having. It's not only about encrypting data and making this unavailable, but as you said, exfiltrating the data as well, getting insight out of it, and really blackmailing additionally the customers. And another thing that you mentioned that it's worth of repeating, it is related to all of types of the customers, governmental, public, whatever, central or local governments. I can see this in a very small towns, bureaus that are being hacked, and the data is encrypted. That there's local communities is not having available the services at all. For instance, from the local government, but as well it is related to the central ministries. But of course, the same or even at the larger scale, all of the types of the commercial types of the customers. Do you see any I know it's trivial question, but I'm very keen on answering you answering this. Do you see that there's any specific industry that is more vulnerable or more impacted by the hackers, or we see today that there is no differentiation?
Yes. So the thing actually, what we see is the major trigger is the digital transformation. And what we have seen is that most of the companies are now going through this digital transformation and trying to build up their systems in up-to-date, let's say, digital way to automate as many activities as possible. And this has actually brought in the new vectors that they have not used to. And for example, we just had a case in Lithuania where a huge plant actually brought in this new software, but the operator behind this, the laptop that they were used to lead the conveyor, was actually also put into the internet because the operator was bored during this 12-hour shift. And what he did at the same time, he browsed around in the internet. And of course, he caught a bad, let's say, thing in his computer.
Yeah.
And actually what happened is that the whole plant was shut down because the operator went into the internet and did some mistake on his own. So usually it doesn't have to be only that attackers are attacking you. The people that are working in your own, let's say, environment can do these kind of things. And the digital transformation has been the, let's say, crown jewel from our point of view, that what we have seen is that you have to automate, you have to go there. But if you do these kind of things, then you have to have some kind of control mechanism in place to actually mitigate these kind of falls or attacks from outside.
I like what you said, and I have to do some testimony here as well. You know, we are a technology company, okay, and we do a lot to implement technology solutions, but as well to train our employees, including myself. So I'm getting through those kind of a tracing, you know, anti-phishing and anti-hacking, you know, kind of a exercise I'm doing every I don't know, half a year, and I'm still making mistakes. I just want to say that everyone is vulnerable and potentially making mistakes. So all of the aspects of the companies are here potentially, you know, might be impacted by those hackers that are getting smarter and smarter and more pushy every time. All right, thank you very much. I really like your intro, you know, about it's not only about the commercial, it's not only about the governmental institutions, it's about us going into more IoT space. We are being more and more connected in today's digital world. We are more impacted potentially by those vulnerabilities as well. Arne, please stay with us as long as you can. Of course, there will be any questions. I'm encouraging everyone to ask the questions, by the way. And let me now hand over the stage to Scott Roberts, who will tell us, you know, about the technological aspects, you know, how we can really prepare ourselves to these types of the threats. Scott, over to you.
Thank you, Radomir, and good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Roberts. I am the Cyber Resilience Director for EMEA at Dell Technologies. Today, I am going to share a presentation which should be appearing on your screens now, looking at effective recovery from a cyber attack. And Ari, that was a great presentation. I think it's really good to raise awareness around the influence of operational technology and the connectivity attack surface that presents. It's thought-provoking in today's world how complex the environment we operate in is. So that leads nicely and complementary into what do we do when an attack is successful, and how do we as businesses ensure that we are able to effectively recover following a successful cyber attack. I'm going to kick off by just talking a little bit about the state of cybercrime today. So this graphic is quite compelling, and Radomir touched on this earlier. Today, cybercrime is estimated at a cost of around $6 trillion. If we compare this to country states around the world, cybercrime would be the third biggest country in the world by GDP, making it more profitable than the global drugs trade. Now that's a pretty big number. And obviously the global drugs trade is a big incentive for criminals, but it's a high risk, high reward environment to operate in. And what we're seeing in the market today is actually a lot of sophisticated criminals are moving from traditional high risk, high reward environments like the drugs trade into cybercrime, just due to the fact that it's still high reward, but very, very low risk. I think in the US today, you have a 0.05% chance of being convicted for cybercrime. So this is a huge motivator for more people to be getting involved in this. And that's why over the next 3 to 4 years, we expect the cost of cybercrime to nearly double again. With the sophistication of the criminals that are coming over, what we're seeing is a maturity in the market. And Ari touched on this earlier, how easily accessible a lot of these services are, but also the complexity of that market and the services that are available today. Any person in the world today with financial means and a motive can get their hands on this technology. And with any mature market, as we know, comes competition, which is obviously driving the cost of these services down. With that, we're seeing more and more sophisticated attacks. And what we're seeing is actually criminals are collaborating. to build on progressive technologies that have worked in the past to bring together new and effective ways to attack businesses. One of the other topics that was touched on earlier was what motivates these criminals today. And I think this is really interesting because when we talk about ransomware and we talk about cybercrime today, everyone automatically thinks about the financial gain that comes from a successful ransomware attack. I encrypt your data, I demand X amount of funds from your business. If you don't give it to me, I won't give you your data back. I'm going to touch on insider more so later, but if we look at the right-hand side of this spectrum, there's a different story to tell. Espionage, essentially sitting within your environment and identifying what your intellectual property is. This can be a competitor stealing secrets. It can be someone looking to exfiltrate data, as Ari mentioned, and sell that on the open market or extort you for the selling of that on the open market. The last three here are really interesting because in these situations, typically, there will be no negotiation. These actors gain access to your systems and they have one purpose, and that purpose is just destruction. They can be motivated by many different things, but they don't want to talk to you. They don't want the financial gain of it. They just want you eradicated for whatever means that may be. Now, one that we focus on really heavily within Dell Technologies is the insider threat, because I think this is the hardest one to determine clearly. When does someone become a threat? If we take the example of someone who's a top employee within a firm, they have access to the credentials of the network, they work, they are happy. One day they're approached on the open market by a bad actor and offered a very large sum of money to hand over their network credentials. Can we guarantee that every employee would say no? I mean, if we take the example of Tesla, one of their network employees was offered $500,000 to essentially hand over those credentials to a bad actor. Now, in that case, the employee did work with the FBI to go after the ransomware gang behind it. But what's really interesting is that that is happening within the market. So if you have someone who is interested in attacking your business, they may approach your employees, leaving you exposed to the potential for insider threats. And how do we determine who a criminal is, if we use that term, within insider threats? Because this could change within a very short period of time. And there's no moment where they're premeditating or predicting that they're going to act in that way. It's a motivator that hits them unexpectedly. So around the world, we're seeing clear guidance as to how to protect yourself from a successful cyber attack. Many government bodies, we have advisory firms, we also have security councils from around the world. In EMEA, we have ENISA, and they are creating a framework as we speak. This was kicked off in July, so we're probably going to see the outcomes of that over the next 6 months. What's really key here, though, is the common language around isolated recovery, disconnected from the network, having your data safe, essentially, so that it can't become vulnerable to those bad actors out there in the marketplace today. That brings me nicely on to how we discuss this with our clients. So we at Dell Technologies align to the NIST cybersecurity framework, and many of you are probably familiar with this. It's a common language that allows us to communicate both with our clients, but also for our clients to communicate well internally with all stakeholders within the business. If we look at the framework, it's built up of 5 different pieces. Working from left to right, we typically have the preventative measures in identify and protect. So this will be your firewalls, your preventative technologies around your key data, stopping anyone from getting in. This is typically where businesses will focus the majority of their funds, because as human beings, we are typically guarded to the mentality of, if it's bad, don't let it in, do everything we can to stop it getting in. When we look at the detect and respond in this framework, we're actually talking about during a cyber attack. So this is when something's already in your network and all you're looking to do is get it out and minimize the impact it's going to have on you and your business. Now, when we start to look at after a cyber attack, this is probably one of the most neglected parts of this framework, because so much focus goes into preventative measures, the recovery gets overlooked. But actually, given the sophistication of the market today and the complexity of the threats that are out there, and Ari touched on a few of these earlier, we need to start changing our mindset to, these are very sophisticated criminals, and we can be right 99% of the time. They have to be right once to get into your environment and start making changes and getting access to your data. So Radomir touched on this briefly earlier, but cyber resilience is not a technology. Cyber resilience is a strategy that you as a business need to build and understand. What we're effectively trying to achieve here is an effective recovery plan that will enable you to get access to your data and rebuild your environment when it comes to rebuilding after a successful cyber attack. And when I say successful cyber attack, I'm talking about severe damage to your production environment. Someone has come in and maliciously either encrypted, deleted, and just ultimately destroyed what is your core set of business applications. This is the people process guidelines that will enable you to bring that business back from that part of destruction, I guess. Now, we at Dell Technologies offer a cyber recovery as a solution, and that is a data protection solution that adheres to all of the terminology you see in all of the guidance around the world, essentially storing a core set of your data away from your production network and allowing you to effectively recover. All of these solutions are based around 3 key pillars, and I'll touch on those briefly now. The 3 pillars are isolation, immutability, and intelligence. If we start with the first, isolation, this is essentially ensuring that your data is away from your production network, away from any bad actor, and non-vulnerable to a threat of any kind. If we look back to the insider threat that we discussed earlier, this also protects from anyone who is compromised within your business. So in Dell Technologies world, we protect the access layer as well as the data itself in an isolated fashion. So the credentials are only accessible from within the vault, meaning that the data will remain protected regardless of the modern threat that's presented today. Immutability is the second tower, and this is something that is widely used across the industry today. I think every technology in the market has some form of immutability. Immutability is essentially the ability to write data and then lock that data so it can no longer be manipulated or changed. And that's changing it by person or by code, software, malware, ransomware, whatever that may be. So once we have the data isolated, we create an immutable copy of that data and store it in an isolated way so that it can't be changed and it can't be seen. And the third pillar here is intelligence. And this is probably the most important pillar we have today. So the intelligence is the analysis of that data to ensure that we have a good copy of data to recover from. And conversely to what most technologies will say today, at Dell, we actually welcome bad data into the vault. As I mentioned earlier, the data is immutable and containerized within the vault. So the more data we have, the quicker we can analyze that last known good copy of data and help to effectively recover a business from its bare bones. If we want to visually represent this, it would look something like this. You'd have your production environment, you'd have your backup environment. These sit within your standard corporate network. They service a certain requirement within your business. You can restore backups, you can fail over, you can create disaster recovery scenarios to recover your business. What we then do is add on a cyber recovery vault, which operates over an automated air gap, and as I mentioned, creates a clean copy, locks it down, and then analyzes that, sending data back to your business so that you know you have that effective recovery capability. Finally, we at Dell Technologies have been doing this for a long time. We have over 1,000 cyber recovery customers across the world, and we've been implementing vaults since 2015, recently progressing into our multi-cloud environments and different vehicles to deliver vaults to the modern customer of today, because ultimately every business works in a different way, and we want to be able to support all of our customers across the globe. Thank you very much for listening.
All right, so let me ask a couple of questions, because it's the conceptually what you touch here is the difference between a cyber resilience as a strategy and then cyber recovery. And you talk about the common language, about having the data in a safe place and isolating the recovery itself. Data recovery is not something new, okay, some new concept. We've been we as a Dell Technologies, we've been doing this it's a bread and butter for us for many years, but it's widely accepted concept on the market. But when you think cyber, okay, and cyber resilience and cyber recovery, so what's really the difference, or how different is about the cyber recovery when compared to the traditional backup, and recovery solutions?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So cyber recovery, in a nutshell, covers the modern threat of today. And this is completely different to the traditional threats of outages. If we look at typical disaster recovery scenarios, this could be anything from flooding to power outages, data centers going offline. We typically, in those scenarios, would have our data far away from our production environment so that it's safe and unaffected by whatever has affected that data. In the cyber recovery environment, it's actually the polar opposite. We want the data as close to our production environment as possible because we're not dealing with a physical threat. We're dealing with a modern digital threat. Yeah. And actually, we're reducing our recovery time back to the business. So it's a different way to approach data storage and protection.
I agree, but as you touched this a little bit point, I would like you if you can elaborate more, because we have like very, very different approaches to how today the data is being stored and processed, and the multi-cloud strategy that is like one of the trends that we can see that our customers are facing and really embracing. Is that we see already that different types of the customers are using different clouds. In a hybrid cloud environment, having data on-prem, off-prem, and depending on the workloads, using a different multi-cloud approach. How do you see this from the complexity perspective and really readiness? How to really build a strategy of cyber recovery, or in this case?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And I guess it has two answers. One is to have that effective plan to understand how we recover, and based on our complex environments that we have today, and that can include multiple clouds, co-located data centers, managed service providers. There's a huge ecosystem of complexity in how we deploy today. What we have is the capability to plug into all of those different areas and leverage the ability to bring that data back, ideally to a central source. But then that could be different depending on an architecture design where we need various data in various places, for example, to ensure the shortest time to effective recovery. But we can deploy across the multi-cloud environment, and we can work with managed service providers to deliver this as a service as well.
Okay, that's nice. That is my understanding, that depending on our model in a company, we can use this concept of the cyber vault in a multi-cloud with our multi-cloud strategy. That's really good. But looking broader, what is really the most important part of the cyber resiliency strategy? Okay, so we talk about like different concepts here, but from your experience, what is the most important part here?
It's always the people and the command chain and the execution of that plan. If we look at examples from some of the big companies here in the UK, we had a situation at one of the large banks where they had a recovery plan in place. All of the tools were there to do it, but they had no one to press the button to execute the plan. So they lost 8 hours of data because no one pressed the button, even though the full stack of plan was ready to go.
Oh my God.
There was no authority. So that roles and responsibilities, effective planning, and having that clear and concise message is really important. If we take the example of a ransomware attack, if you don't have an effective recovery plan in place, on day one of the attack, you'll have to put together a crisis team. And if you don't have that team ready together, you may not have communications, you may not have access to your data or files. So you're talking about putting together a team essentially in the dark, and creating a team in a perfect environment is difficult at times. So it's building out that response completely from nothing is 100 times harder than it would be to do from an effective plan.
That's a very good point. So because technology, although very, very important, it's not enough to really be ready and to respond in a case of the threat and the attack. So building the right processes and having people train how to act in a situation of attack is the most important part of the cyber resiliency, as you said. So if you can just tell us how, so what would be my engagement model? So I'm already convinced, I understand the threat. So I'm reading this in the news. I'm hearing that this is tangible, threat to my business as well. How should I what should be my next steps, working with the Dell Technologies, for instance?
So reach out to your local account team. They'll be able to organise an assessment. We can run a workshop with you to identify how best to protect your business and also to share our knowledge across the deployments we have across the world. We're well versed in delivering this technology and the outcome of the effective recovery. So speak to your local Dell account team. We have resources across the globe to assist in advising and also delivering this kind of solution.
That's cool, and I can see, and I need to like repeat this one, that Dell Technologies, we have been in this already for a couple of years, so it's nothing new for us. And I remember this like coming from the US. Now in our part of the Europe, it's really becoming something very like typical engagement model and the topic for this. Okay, Scott, thank you very much. I do really appreciate your time. Are as well. I really enjoyed your like session, showing us all the landscape of the threats that we see, and I learned a lot here about the motivation of the hackers as well and how smart they are becoming. I can't see any additional questions, so I think it will like conclude our session today. Again, thank you everyone. We are like very much open and approachable. If you have any questions, any suggestions, please let us know. We are like ready here to help and continue the conversation. All right. So thank you very much, everyone, and thank you and have a nice day. Thank you.
You're on mute, Ari.
Thank you, Radomir. And everybody else, stay safe. Bye.
Thanks all. Thanks for listening this morning. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.